A very warm welcome to all our listeners. These days, there is so much talk about equality for one and all. Everyone is fighting for it, especially when it comes to gender. Everyone wants to be on an equal footing. I recently came across another concept, the concept of gender equity. On reading it, I realized that though both gender equality and gender equity may seem to be similar, they are not. Today at UCS, we bring to you a very interesting topic, gender equity versus gender equality. A lot of you may be wondering what these phrases mean, or some of you may even wonder, are they not one and the same? Gender equity versus gender equality. For a clearer understanding of these concepts, we have with us Ms. Anupama V, our chief trainer from UCS, who is also a corporate lawyer with experience in labor and employment laws for over 2 decades and is also a non-executive director on several boards. She focuses on corporate and employment laws and also in increasing diversity at workplaces. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in industrial psychology. Hello, Anupama. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Kaveri, and it's always a pleasure to be here. Yes, these concepts look very alike, and most people do confuse themselves thinking that gender equity and gender equality are one and the same. However, as you said it, it's definitely not, and they are very different in several ways. As per the International Labour Organization, or the ILO as it is popularly known worldwide, the concept of gender equity refers to fairness of treatment for women and men according to their respective needs. I stress on the point respective needs. The concept of gender equality means that different behavior, aspirations, and needs of women and men are considered, valued, and favored equally. Again, I stress on favored equally. The United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, that's the UNESCO, plays a very important role in promoting gender equity. As per UNESCO, there are three main differences between the two concepts, and I'll take you through them. Gender equity includes making it conducive for all genders to seek specific support and help based on their needs, whereas gender equality includes making it conducive for all genders to freely develop their personal abilities and make choices without limitations set by the stereotypical views, rigid gender roles, and prejudices. Gender equity focuses on developing a support system for such gender where there is a gap to bridge the gap. Whereas gender equality aims to create a level playing field for both men and women while ignoring the historical disadvantages that a certain gender has inherited. Again, gender equity, the finish line is the same, but the starting may be subject to their respective needs. Whereas gender equality is about creating the same starting line for everyone. Just to give you an example, when it comes to gender equity, we are talking about giving those small pushes, the small nudges that are needed for a particular gender which may be disadvantaged because of situations in the society or because of the historical background. We give them that little nudge that is required so that they are able to stand in the same position with everybody else in the society. To make it very simple to understand, if equality is the end goal, equity is the means to get there.
Wonderful, Anupama. I never thought of it this way. Equity is the means to get to equality. I have often heard that having a gender diverse workplace is beneficial for an organization. Can you throw some light on it?
Of course, Kaveri, there are several benefits of having a gender diverse workplace. Based on multiple studies by different organizations, I will mention some major benefits of gender diversity to you. To begin with, there is a wide talent pool when there's a diverse workplace. Men and women come with different strengths, aptitudes, flares, multiple perspectives, and talents. And therefore, each one's contribution will be different and compensate for what another gender might lack. This wide talent pool will lead to increased growth and innovation and in turn improve productivity for an organization. And finally, this will lead to a better economy with better buying power and a high standard of living for one and all. I'll take a few minutes to actually bring everyone's attention to the disparity we have in our country right now between the working men and women. As of 2019, the percentage of educated men stood at 80.09%, and that of educated women was at 65.46. Now, if you'll notice, the gap between educated men and women is quite close. However, when it comes to employment, the percentage of employed men is 76.07%, which means nearly 100% of those educated get employed. Whereas the percentage of women who are employed is only 23.03%. You will notice that there is a big gap between the women employed and the men employed, even though when it comes to education, both of them are nearly equal. Also, even today, women's pay is 20% lower than that of men on a global average. And women remain underrepresented in the top positions, in the C-suite positions. And actually, the situation has changed very little in the last 30 years. Do you know that less than 1/3 of the managers are women? The only way that there can be a change in diversity in workplace is by bringing in gender equity. That is, by giving women the specific support and help based on their needs and bridge the gap accordingly.
Anupama, you mentioned that women men employment ratio has a large gap. Has the pandemic affected women's employment further?
Definitely, Kaveri. The pandemic has affected women's employment in a big way. The ILO report 2020 mentions that during the pandemic, female employment had declined by 5% compared to 3.9% for the men globally. Nearly 90% of women who have lost their jobs have subsequently left the workforce itself. According to an article in Deccan Herald, which I read recently, the employment of women in India fell from 31% to 29% due to the pandemic. And one of the reasons that women are the first ones to face the axe is because women are not considered as the breadwinners of the family and are the most vulnerable lot.
What do you think that organizations must do to bridge the gap?
Some important steps organizations could take to increase gender diversity at workplace could be to make pay equity a priority, encourage mentorship and leadership programs for other genders who are in minority, formulate and advocate strict anti-sexual harassment policy, anti-harassment and anti-bias policy for other genders, encourage male employees to take leave for family responsibilities, formulate and encourage paternity leave policies, subject of course to accountability, recognize that each person comes from a different situation and formulate policies to suit needs and to then make a uniform policy.
With paternity leave policy, I remember that last week I came across a policy by a company which had agreed to give 30 weeks as parenting leave. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, Kaveri, I'm aware of this. A neutral parental leave policies for all categories of employees, including men, women, LGBTQ plus, is always laudable. However, organizations need to spend substantial amount of time in seeing how the father especially will contribute during this period of leave. Remember, we are a patriarchal society. A lot of practices still continue to be an obligation on the woman alone, and we